Vikings needed to complete deep ball passes and execute passing plays when the running game wasn't working. Quote, at some point, you're not going to be able to run the ball for 180 yards, even with the best running back in the NFL. That's when you have to be able to throw the ball. You have to be able to make plays. You have to be able to hit the deep balls. You have to do that. Well, on Tuesday, Kirk Cousins apologized to his Pro Bowl receiver. Minnesota is currently 2-2, last in the division. Ryan Clark with us now. Good to see you. Max?
Yep.
Do you think Kirk Cousins could take the Vikings to the playoffs?
I do. I'm not a big believer in Kirk Cousins. I never thought he was going to be an elite quarterback. I would have kept Case Keenum at a steep discount versus what you had to give to Cousins. Keenum not only was almost like a bubble MVP candidate that year, but he came up big in the playoffs. Oh, he got lucky. Whatever. The team liked him. They played with him and for him, like a little bit of that Nick Foles pixie dust, I felt. But, okay, the team looks and goes, no, but realistically, you can't rely on that. Kirk Cousins will be better, et cetera. I always saw Kirk Cousins as an empty-calorie quarterback. You need 8 yards for a first down to get you 6, right? So I don't like him to win the Super Bowl.
I like that, empty-calorie quarterback. I kind of like that.
That's not original to me. But so I don't like him to win the Super Bowl. Right. But to get the team to the playoffs, that's entirely possible because Minnesota has a good team. Both sides of the ball, they're good. They can run the ball. They can play defense. And the question is, can Kirk Cousins play well enough to win enough games to make the playoffs? The answer is yes. By the way, Vikings-Giants, here you have an excellent point. Like both 2-2 teams, but the Vikings fundamentally are a way better team than the Giants. Way better. Even if I'd rather have the Giants quarterback. Kirk Cousins is a middle-of-the-pack guy, good enough to get you there.
Well, let me say this. You know, the beauty and the luxury at times of sitting in this chair on national television every weekday morning is that you don't always have to go look for information. Sometimes it just comes to you. Folks will call you up, give you some information, and damn, there it is. And I have been very, very blessed and fortunate enough over the years to be very, very connected to the Washington Redskins, various organizations, particularly with the NBA. I have at least 2 folks on every team as a source. At least 2.
Being connected to Washington's a blessing?
No. Here's what I'm saying. For my profession, being connected to information is a blessing. Yeah. And the reason why I bring that up, even though he's in Minnesota right now, is that when he was in Washington, you had players that literally said, quote, he ain't about winning, he's about numbers. And they didn't say that as an indictment against him as a bad person because he's considered a relatively nice guy. We met him. We did the show.
Very nice guy.
Redskins. Very, very nice guy. They was just talking about the fact that when you separate guys of his talent, that intangible that you're looking for, the great ones have it, he doesn't. He's a safety guy. He's the guy that wants to do the safe thing because he'd rather not mess up than take chances and really, really excel. Why do I bring that up? Because over the last 2 weeks, they played Oakland, they played Chicago, right? Do you know that Kirk Cousins is completing 73% of his passes? 71% against Oakland, 75% against Chicago. But what the hell does it mean? Because you lost to Chicago, you only scored 6 points. Thielen, one of the better receivers in the National Football League, only caught 2 receptions for 6 yards. You missed him on a 3rd and 10, which you highlighted in the press conference, feeling the need to apologize to him. Here's the reality of the situation, and I'm not going to take credit for this. I was driving in my car yesterday, and I was listening to Mad Dog Russo because I had about 20 minutes, and so Mad Dog's my man. I turned it on to listen. He had Peter King on, and Peter King was like, the Minnesota Vikings might walk away, and it might cost them $28 million, and they may not even care. Because the one thing Peter King said, one thing I'll tell you is that Zimmer's going to play the best guy. He don't give a damn about that money. That's your issue. He going to put the best guy out there to win. So we're talking about a guy in Kirk Cousins that was guaranteed $84 million, $28 million per year for 3 years. Guaranteed, every single penny, okay? He signs that contract, and you have a situation where he is so bad right now, the Minnesota Vikings are thinking about walking away from him, eating the $28 million. And oh, by the way, in the midst of all of this, he is apologizing to receivers for missing throws. This is a bad situation. Hell no, he ain't going to take the Vikings to the playoffs this year, in my opinion.
They want Case Keenum back.
So,
right.
So the hard part
and by the way, Peter King said that was possible, too.
Yeah, he's
so the hard part here is you have Sean Mannion, who used to play for the Los Angeles Rams, and he's the backup. You also went out and got Kirk Cousins for one reason, and this is more the Minnesota Vikings Vikings' fault than Kirk Cousins' fault.
Okay.
Kirk Cousins is only being the best him he knows how to be. And that was the numbers guy. That was the guy who you can look to at the end of the season and look at the numbers and see the completion rate, see the touchdown to interception ratio was 2-1 and say, you know what? He's a good quarterback and you could justify him by using the numbers. But he's a 500 guy. Kirk Cousins isn't a guy that makes you better. The reason they went out and got him is because they looked at Case Keenum and saw a ceiling. They said Case Keenum can only get us this far, but we do have the running game. And at that point, Dalvin Cook was injured. We do have the running game when Dalvin Cook is back. We understand we have this great defense, and they still have those things. This morning, Dominique Foxworth was talking about it, and he said they have problems. No, they have a problem. And that problem is Kirk Cousins. The other thing I knew about Kirk Cousins when we played was that Kirk Cousins has been coached and taught, or at least taught himself, to always say the right things, to always do the best he can to project the proper image to the public. And so in seeing this, after being called out by your best receiver, after being called out by Adam Thielen, which is another topic, because if it was Antonio Brown, if it was Odell Beckham Jr., this conversation would be about them, and they're complaining after the game about catching passes as opposed to now talking about Kirk Cousins. That apology was for us. That apology was so we can get on here and talk about how he's accepted accountability and he's sorry. Nah, you do that
phony?
Without trying to say it.
Okay.
So I'm trying to say that he is prepared, he is practiced, he is rehearsed. And so to him, this seemed like the right thing to do. So now we can go out and talk about it. What you do is you go in the locker room. If you want to lead me, if you want to be a guy I follow, come to me in the locker room and say, Adam, you ain't had to say that. But since you did, here, you're right, it's my bad. We gonna get it fixed. And when you say that, and when you look a man in the eye and you talk to him and it's just between you and him, it carries different weight than doing it on a podcast or doing it on the radio. So now it gets spoken about, it gets played. And
Who
this
are you
is
talking
a guy,
about here, Thielen?
Kirk Cousins.
No, he's
Yeah, because-
Kirk Cousins. It's not
Because he
genuine,
didn't do
the
it, he didn't do
apology.
it privately.
He didn't do it
He did it
privately.
publicly
And so now-
to make us say, oh, he's taking accountability.
Right. And so now the other part of it is this, and this is, and like, I think the other thing is people like Kirk. Kirk is likable.
He's very likable.
He's an actual
charming guy.
good dude too. He's a good person. But I know, and we talked about it because he asked me when I was playing, because I was doing this job. He wants to do this job. So now you have this sound bite that's played over and over again. You get to hear Kirk Cousins
Let me ask you a question
talk.
about Kirk Cousins, the player, though. I get that point. You're saying he's a 500 quarterback. I'm totally with you, right? Solid middle of the pack kind of guy, but a starter. Usually that guy with a team won't drag down a good team if he has a good team around him. Recently, it feels like because he doesn't have an accurate deep ball or hasn't been throwing it, it's even gun-shy to throw it, he's been actually dragging down a good team. Do you think he's the kind of guy, because the team's so strong, they can make the playoffs?
No, I don't, because what you won't do is you won't beat teams you're not supposed to beat, or you won't win the 50-50 ball games. If you look at this game versus Chase Daniel and the Chicago Bears, there were two very good defenses. You have a better run game than they have, and so you actually have dragged the team down because you haven't made the plays you were supposed to. It's not necessarily that he has to go out and do extra. He doesn't have to make Adam Thielen better, but if Adam Thielen has 3 steps on Kyle Fuller, you have to throw the ball where it's catchable. If Stephon Diggs has made a move and got an opportunity, you got to make a play. And so when you become check down Charlie, when you're the guy that says, you know what, instead of taking a hit, standing in the pocket, possibly making a mistake, I'm going to get the ball out quickly, that's a guy who can't take you over the hump and win games you're not supposed to.
First of all, I appreciate your point. Last point, I appreciate your point about Thielen calling out Kirk Cousins. Because if this was Antonio Brown or another receiver calling out Kirk Cousins, what would we be saying about them? We said nothing about Thielen.
Guy.
Now, I don't have any problem.
I don't have any problem.
I don't have any problem with what Thielen did. I'm just saying that if it had been somebody else, you're absolutely right.
I've talked to Thielen, and I did a piece with him. Good dude, understands it. And he put the onus on everybody. He was saying but we all understood what it was.
The other part is Rick Spielman, owner Mark Wolf, I think that's his name, Vikings. You elected to bring this dude on board. I don't recall Zimmer clamoring for Kirk Cousins. It was almost like he was forced upon, Kirk Cousins was forced upon the head coach. We got to wonder what kind of role that's playing in all of this, too.
All right, let's
I'm so sorry, but one last thing was, remember, he was just the guy that came open. They just wanted a guy, and he was the guy that kind of fell to him.
He was getting.
He didn't have to get 84 million.
Franchised
Gotta
every
leave
year.
it there,
though.
guys. We got a juicy one coming up. Money Green, Ryan Clark will be back with us in just a bit.
Money
Shaq
Green.
and Damian Lillard are in a
Lolly. That's
heated
cool.
rap battle. Appreciate that. But is Dame time out of his league? The answer comes